So it's a great delight to address this very distinguished audience. It's an immense pleasure. We're in the midst of very exciting changes in India. There's immense amount of energy, there's huge vibrancy, there's great dynamism in India right now. And the government has initiated a series of new initiatives led by Make in India, there's Digital India, there's Skill India. The objective of government is to take India to a high trajectory growth rate of 9 to 10% per annum, year after year, year after year, year after year, for the next 3 decades or more, to be able to lift a very young population above the poverty line. India is passing through a window of demographic transition which rarely happens in history. Almost 72% of its population is below the age of 32. To my mind, the biggest social and economic transformation occurring across the world is that the population in India and some of the emerging markets is getting younger and younger, whereas the population in Europe and America is getting older and older. And I think it has very serious repercussions over a long period of time. But I think, to my mind, the key issue is whether India will be able to achieve its potential of growing at rapid rates. Is the last giant economy of the world to get out of its slumber and move forward on a high trajectory growth rate. It's growing at about 7.5% per annum. The rate is accelerating at a point of time when there's very subdued economic atmosphere across the world. And I think it's important that when we talk about branding, and my association with branding is essentially related with public campaigns. Many of you have been associated with campaigns which are about brand building of private brands. And I think there's a world of difference between government brands, public campaigns, and private campaigns. And I've been associated with 3 campaigns which have in many ways been transformational. I actually started my career in Kerala. Kerala was not a known destination in the mid-90s as a tourism destination. It is today widely known across the world as a leading tourism destination. We branded it as God's own country. But I think the story of Kerala is quite an amazing story because it was a very low-value destination. It was known as a destination for very low-value tourists who used to come to Kovalam, and that was the only product for which it was known. In late 90s, we closed Kovalam totally because low-value tourism had led to, a wide level of cultural invasion. It had led to encroachments. We closed it, and we actually reinvented Kerala. We went back to Kerala's root. We differentiated it from the rest of the world. We created totally new products, the backwaters of Kerala, the Ayurveda of Kerala, not as a massage, but as a regimen, as a therapy. We went back to the cultural roots of Kerala. We revived its traditional Kerala cuisine. We went back to its martial art, Kalripet. We made poachers into guides. In the Periyar Game Sanctuary, we started new products like tree huts. We did everything which was an antithesis of what the rest of the world was talking about. The world of tourism at that point of time was defined by sun, sand, and sea, widely known as the 3 S's. We moved away and we said we will focus on high-value, upmarket, alert, independent traveler. And Kerala went on to raise its profile as a very, very upmarket, high-value tourism destination simply because Kerala differentiated itself. And my view is that branding is all about differentiation. Branding is about, and each one of the campaign, whether it was God's own country, whether it was Incredible India later, and whether it is Make in India now, I've always believed that branding is not about advertising. Branding is about delivering on ground. Branding is about working with some of the best creative minds. And government is normally associated with working with mediocrity, but I've always worked with some of the finest creative minds in India, whether it was Piyush Pandey, whether it was V. Sunil, whether it was Santosh Shivan, all of them were some of the finest, most creative people. And I've always believed that government must pay to get the finest people. So I've never worked on the lowest cost, but I've always worked on giving about 80 to 85% on quality. For me, the quality is a very critical component. And therefore, in Kerala, when we branded it, it was about differentiating Kerala from the rest of the tourism destination. And I think Kerala became a unique product of local entrepreneurship. It is not a world of five-star culture. It is about some unique boutique resorts. And Kerala went on to be defined as one of the 10 exotic paradises of the world. It went on to be rated as the best tourism destination for about 7 to 8 years in a row. After Kerala, I moved on to the government of India, and I was in the Ministry of Tourism. And soon after I'd landed up here, the twin blasts of the towers in New York happened. September 11 happened. After that, there was an attack on our parliament. There was war in Afghanistan. There were travel advisories against India, and our hotels were just achieving 10 to 15% occupancy. And at that point of time, the challenge was about bringing consumer demand back. We spoke to tour operators and travel agents across the world. All of them said that, we said we'll buy, and those days actually tourism used to be sold through packages which used to be put into tour operators' guides, into their travel brochure. We went to the leading tour operators across the world, and they said, even if you put in packages, even if you pay for it, even if you advertise, there will be no demand because there is no consumer demand. And that was the time when Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand had all cut their budgets for travel and tourism. At the peak of that crisis, we launched the Incredible India initiative. And it was a 360-degree initiative cutting across print, electronic, across commercial media. And I think it was one of the first few destination campaigns which went totally digital at that point of time. And it really brought back consumer demand. And again, the emphasis was on differentiating India. It's very easy to brand a single product destination like Maldives or Seychelles or South Africa for its wildlife. It's extremely difficult. It's a very, very difficult proposition to to brand a multi-product destination like India, which is bigger than 24 countries of Europe. It has so many products. It has such a huge variety. It's, it has such a unique mystical aura about itself that it's very difficult to brand it. And therefore, it took us quite a bit of effort, but I thought Incredible India came pretty close to it. And again, we went back to the roots of Kerala, to its yoga, its Ayurveda, its meditation in the Himalayas, the vibrancy of its colors. We brought in a lot of humor into the campaign, and I think we went all over the world. And actually, at that point of time, it was a marketing-led strategy which led to the rise of tourism inflows. It forced open several things. It brought in young entrepreneurs who used digital technology to start off new portals like Make My Trip, etc. It forced the government to open up its skies, which were extremely closed at that point of time. India is a long-haul destination. It requires many more flights. So it really forced open India's skies, both in the domestic sector and in the international sector. It forced open the quality of infrastructure. It forced open the setting up of new airports in Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore. But I think more important than that is that we in the tourism department really worked hard to improve the quality of infrastructure on ground. We worked through another parallel campaign called Atithi Deva Bhava to improve the quality of our taxi drivers, our guides, our immigration workers, because we believe that branding will never work in the long run till the brand entity that you build up doesn't match with the reality on ground. So reality on ground has to be a very critical component of your branding exercise. And we work very hard to create new products. Medical tourism was one of them. Rural tourism was another one, to create jobs in rural areas where India has a core competency. So I think India really took off as a travel and tourism destination, but I think India's immense potential as a travel and tourism destination hasn't really been exploited. So Incredible India worked for a very, very long time, but any brand initiative has to be constantly refreshed, rejuvenated all the time. And I think what we need is an Incredible India 2, which is far more vigorous, far more digitally savvy. Much later, I was brought into the Ministry of Industries here and the Prime Minister's to lead the Make in India initiative by the Prime Minister. And to my mind, the key challenge for India is to rapidly grow at high rates. And this can never happen till India doesn't become a manufacturing nation. India has actually grown on the back of services sector. We create almost about 60% of our jobs through the services sector. But if India has to grow, there are huge perils of bypassing the process of manufacturing. And if India is in a country of 1.2 billion, you need to grow with creating jobs. And therefore, the challenge for India is really to grow at rapid rates, but also to create jobs for a very young population. And I think what we are aiming to do with the Make in India initiative is to identify 25 sectors where India has the potential and the scope to become a global champion. So we focused on several things, one of which is that India must become an extremely easy place to do business. India has made itself a very complex, a difficult place to do business. So over the last 1 year, we've actually done away with, scrapped a number of rules, regulation, procedures. We've done away with acts, simply to make India a far more easier place. We've created an e-biz platform in which all departments can apply and get approval through one paper, one single point of payment. We've put together 14 services, but over next 1 year, we'll make all the states and the central government, all the services in one particular place on the e-biz platform so that it becomes extremely easy place to do business. The second critical issue to my mind is that if India is to become a great manufacturing nation, India must be an integral part of the global supply chain. So we've opened up India's economy. In the FDI regime has been opened up across several sectors. It has been opened up in railways, in defense manufacturing, in medical devices, insurance funds, construction, telecommunication, and actually today India is one of the most open economies across the world. We've given a huge impetus to the startup movement so that our young people can create startup not only in the digital world but also in manufacturing and in agriculture sector and become great entrepreneurs. And I think to my mind, India must become a great nation of job creators rather than job seekers. I think that we are seeing a huge energy in the R&D space in India, and actually Bangalore and Hyderabad today have become the center for research and development. In the last 3 to 4 years, we've seen over 1,200 multinational corporations making Bangalore and Hyderabad the center of the research and development. And actually, these companies, R&D has shifted out of the head offices of multinational corporations and relocated itself in Hyderabad and Bangalore. So we are seeing a huge energy across R&D. We are pushing for innovation, we are pushing for design, we are pushing for more patent registration. And the objective is that India must become the center of innovation, design, startup to drive manufacturing in India. To my mind, the key challenge really is that India must become easy, must become an integral part of the global supply chain, and that is what we are driving through the Make in India campaign. The FDI inflows into the country since the launch of the Make in India initiative have grown by 48%, a whopping 48%, as compared to a slowdown, a decline of about 16% FDI flows across the world. India has just been rated as the best investment destination by the Foreign Policy magazine. It continues to attract a lot of investment. To my mind, there's huge interest, there's huge enthusiasm, and as we drive forward the Make in India campaign and the initiative, it will increasingly converge and blend with the Digital India initiative. So to my mind, branding is about delivering. Branding is about the reality converging and integrating with the brand entity that we are growing. And in the long run, it's very important that there is the soft part of India and there is the hard part of India. The soft power is defined by India's Bollywood, cricket, its cuisine, its culture, and the hard power is defined by its process of urbanization, its manufacturing, and its process of, and to my mind, this hard power and the soft power, both are critical for India. And as India becomes a far more advanced country, as India urbanizes, and as India is going to get 350 million people to come into the process of urbanization in the next 2 decades. And the latest McKinsey study shows that by 2050, India will see 700 million people getting into the process of urbanization. So we need to build up a brand India. And as we build brand India, both the soft part of it and the hard part of it, India must become a contemporary, modern, advanced nation. But when it becomes a contemporary, modern, advanced nation, it's also very important, very, very important that India must retain its cultural heritage, its unique values, its softer powers. And to my mind, this unique convergence of India, of its advanced contemporary nation with its heritage, will be a very key feature. But at the end of it all, to my mind, branding is about people. And the people of India must own this brand. People of India must be the transformational, they must bring in transformation. They must be the key leaders who are driving change in India. They must own the brand. Public brands are about being owned by people. And to my mind, the people of India must own the brand of India. People of India must, as India becomes increasingly driven by middle class, and as the latest National Council of Applied Economic Research shows, that by 2024, 48% of India's population will be middle class. And people will increasingly vote not for caste, not for class, but they'll increasingly vote for roads, they'll vote for corridors, they'll vote for growth, they'll vote for development. So the middle class will become the key driver of India's growth. And therefore, this middle class of India, which must own this brand of India. So people must transform India. They must own the brand of India. They must own the progress, the growth of India. They must become the key drivers of India growth. And I turn to this, to my mind, it's critical that essentially, the people are the critical feature. And I turn to this 14th century poet of India, a remarkable gentleman who was a Muslim. His ancestry was Turkic, and he wrote in the Persian language, and that was Amir Khusro in 14th century India. And Amir Khusro was one of the greatest writers India has ever produced. He was a Muslim. He wrote in Persian. His ancestry was Turkic. And of 14th century India, he wrote, in 14th century India, Amir Khusro said that he was the luckiest man to have been born alive in India, to have India as his motherland, simply because the brand of India was extremely high. And at that point of time, India accounted for almost 55% of the global GDP. And he said how exhilarating is the atmosphere of India. There cannot be a better teacher than the way of life of its people. If any foreigner comes by, he will have to ask for nothing, because they treat him as their own and show him how to smile like a flower. So if India is to smile like a flower, if India is to grow and prosper, if India is to progress, India must continue to grow at rates of 9 to 10%. India must grow to become a great manufacturing nation, but India must retain its unique heritage, its unique culture, and the brand of India must be owned by its people. I think India's opportunity is now. India's got a unique opportunity to build its brand, and that brand building is about constant delivering. It's about growing. It's about levels of education to the people. It's about lifting people above the poverty line. And I think India's opportunity is now. It's a transformational opportunity. India must seize this opportunity, and India must deliver. And I think this is an opportunity on which not merely political and administrative leadership, but a lot is dependent on the people of India. I mean, there are movements like Swachh Bharat and all, where people must take ownership. So to my mind, let's not get into the past. Let's not talk about the past at all. Let's not talk about 50, 60 years. I think we need to look at future with clarity, with future with vision, and we need to be absolutely clear that we need India to grow rapidly and we need India to create jobs.